She's a New York City public defender who's also competed on like little competition shows called like Survivor and The Amazing Race. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And she's also run for district attorney, so she like knows a lot about like crazy competitive world of politics, reality TV competition. So she has a way of breaking the news down. Please welcome to the stage, Eliza Orlins! Thank you for being here, Eliza.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to you.
No, literally, I think the proper term to describe today's age is batshit crazy.
Oh my God,
and
constantly.
You have a way of distilling what's happening factually and like, okay, this is what I should be worried about and what's noise. So I was wondering if we could just look at a couple like headlines, news stories, and you can just kind of explain, okay, y'all, this is what you actually need to know. Are you ready for that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's what I do all day, every day.
I know, she was like, we're prepping for the show, she's like, literally guys, you can text me 5 minutes before the show, I'll know what to talk about. I was like, great, this is my kind of girl. Okay, so first up, I want to talk about what's happening with the Supreme Court and Trump. So essentially, these lower courts are blocking him when it comes to like the deporting of the Venezuelans. And the Supreme Court is then granting him sort of like basically temporary approval. Can you explain like what's going on and what we should know happening there?
Absolutely. So Trump has basically invoked the Alien Enemies Act,
yes,
which is an act from 1798, which is supposed to be when we are in an active wartime.
Yep.
And he invoked this, obviously got challenged in court. He's used it to, deport people who he alleges are part of Tren de Aragua, which is this Venezuelan gang.
Right.
And he has basically just snatched people up, including Kimar Abrego Garcia, who we found out 5 minutes before the show started that the Supreme Court actually did rule after the stay. But the Supreme Court ruling from Monday on this Alien Enemies Act was basically saying that Trump could in fact use this act, but they also guaranteed due process. They said you have to actually allow for due process.
I mean, I'm pretty aware. I've not seen a lot of gay Venezuelan makeup artists invading the country, but I guess that's what Trump's rounding up.
No, seriously, and it's really upsetting.
It's really upsetting, and also with the Kristi Noem going to the prison and with her fully made up face, Real Housewives style, doing a little like Instagram video.
Not to mention with the Rolex Daytona, a $50,000 watch on, like doing this. It was so gross in one of like the most horrific, violent, dangerous prisons in this world.
So what is this? When the Supreme Court ruled on Monday, they basically said like we need more time to figure this out. Not like the guy's rotting away in a prison in El Salvador, but like, is this just the consequence of a conservative Supreme Court now?
Absolutely. So this is, there's been decades of planning that has gone into the current moment that we're seeing. This isn't a decision that was made overnight. Mm-hmm. Those of us who actually sat down and read Project 2025 saw all of this coming.
Yes, not a surprise.
No, I know. But this Supreme Court, the makeup of the Supreme Court is such that we really only have 3 liberal justices. And then, it was Amy Coney Barrett has sometimes ruled with
can we just be real for now? That girl is surprising me a little bit sometimes. I'm not an Amy fan, Handmaid's Tale, like putting on that red cape, but hey, she's kind of voting with the liberals occasionally.
I know. She's like basically getting canceled on Twitter now by the conservatives because they're so upset that she's ruling with the liberal justices. But the stay that it was just signed by Chief Justice Roberts on Monday saying, I need more time. The deadline was 11:59 p.m. on Monday to bring back Mr. Abrego Garcia, this Maryland father who was snatched up in Maryland and taken to this Salvadorian prison, and they said we need more time. And understandable, because as the stay came down, I was like, I had just downloaded the government's motion, which was 133 pages, and I was like, I used primary documents, so let me read this. And I didn't even get through it before Roberts had issued the stay. Well, 5 minutes before this show started, the Supreme Court did in fact rule and say that they have to bring him back.
Good. Thank God. So, okay, they have a heart.
Really good news.
And before we move on, there's the next slide, because I'm familiar myself with this. People need to understand who in this country has the right of due process? Because I think a lot of people on the right saying, well, they're not citizens, they're not citizens.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, right?
Everyone has the right to due process. That is a right that exists while you are on American soil.
Yeah.
And even now, someone who's been illegally deported. Oh yeah, this was a great graphic. This was, I think, the Times, yeah. But truly, everyone has the right to due process. Even people, it says usually, but even people who are here who have no documentation.
Right. Okay, so another story that I want to talk about, and it's going to be a different headline than what's shown, but I won't talk about it. But two major things came out of the House of Representatives, the Republican-controlled House.
Yeah.
One of them is the SAVE Act.
Yes.
And liberal social media, including Secretary Clinton, she's posting a lot about it. It's a voting, I don't know what you call it, voting control, voting restriction law. Essentially requiring proof of citizenship, certain documentation, and there's fear that it could impact married women who've changed their names. Can you kind of describe, like, should we worry about this law, and what's the consequence of it?
So first of all, if you're going to describe it, I think we need to describe it as what it is, which is a voter suppression.
Suppression,
law.
yes.
Like this is something. It is in the vein of Jim Crow. I mean, it is truly a law that is aimed at suppressing voting, especially among certain people. It could especially impact women. Mm-hmm. It could especially impact, naturalized citizens. It could especially, people from marginalized communities specifically. But there are 70 million married women in America who have changed their name and might not have a passport, a birth certificate, other identification documents such as military papers that would be required if the SAVE Act were to pass. Right. Now, I'm not saying to not worry about it. This is definitely something that we should all be worried about because this is a real issue. They're trying to claw back voting rights. They want to make it harder for people to vote. However, this is not going to pass the Senate. No. They're not going to have 60 senators.
Filibuster, baby, and now I like it. Woohoo!
So I would say you should engage on this issue because this is something that we need to make sure that we are speaking up and shouting about this so that things don't snowball from it. We want people to know that we're engaged on this issue. So call your senator and say, don't you dare vote in favor of the SAVE Act. However, it doesn't look likely to pass the Senate under any circumstances. They're not getting 60 senators.
And they're trying to phrase it stopping undocumented people from voting, which never happens.
It's not a problem.
It's not a problem.
It's like a fake problem.
Right.
It's like trans women in sports. Like, this is also not a problem. Like, leave it alone.
Literally,
leave them alone. Let them fucking live. Let
them kick a soccer ball. I mean, no, it's a crazy thing. Okay, but also, so there was drama last night in the House, and Democrats were loving it because the Republicans couldn't pass this bill to move on to the big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump keeps talking about. Unfortunately, they did pass it today, but there's still a lot of disagreement between the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge problem. And what I really, the schadenfreude of it all, the way in which they couldn't pass it last night was so beautiful for us because Trump himself apparently called the holdouts.
He was making phone calls.
He was personally calling the Republican holdouts, and they were like, yeah, no, screw you. I'm not voting for this.
Right.
So that was pretty awesome.
It was.
It shows that there are a couple of them who are maybe willing to stand up to him.
Did the tariff stuff kind of weaken him a little bit in Republicans' eyes? I hope so.
I hope so too.
Right.
You see even what's his name? Jackass Dave Portnoy is upset with Trump, who's been, he's been so obsessed with him, and even he's like, I think I would, if things don't settle down, I think I might vote for a Democrat.
Oh God, I know. I've been loving watching the Barstool people freak out.
Yeah.
And then finally, I don't know if you saw this. Do you see that Hakeem Jeffries challenged the speaker to a floor debate?
I mean, bring it on.
Bring it on, right?
Bring it on.
Because that's very UK, right? That people in the parliament kind of yell at each other, Real Housewives style. I'm all for that.
Me too.
So
keep those cameras rolling. My C-SPAN will be on.
All we need is Andy and a camera. I mean, literally, just I want Housewives politics to devolve more into Housewives. So on that note.